So imagine if you had some type of disorder, some kind of chronic disorder, some kind of chronic disease, right? I'm going to show you how, in every chronic situation, for instance, there can be changes in your blood, and I'll show you exactly why. So, I don't care what it is. Maybe it's hypertension, maybe it's congestive heart failure, diabetes, elevated thyroid, hypo or hyperthyroid, any type of endocrine dysfunction. Maybe it's a cancer, any type of chronic situation. It could be a viral infection, anything, any type of chronic disorder or disease. What's happening is you have obviously you have good cells in your body, good healthy cells, and then you have cells that are less than optimal or less than healthy. In a state of a disorder or disease, what's happening is it's basically a competition for resources. So the good cells are saying, "Hey, I want all the energy." And then the bad cells are saying, "Hey, but what about me? We need some energy too." And so what happens is your energy levels start to go down. How many of you know that, for instance, when you have a disorder or some kind of chronic disease, you don't feel your best, right? You're definitely not working, you're not operating at an optimal state. Okay. Well, let me show you why that is. So, so here's where I am. Let's say you have any kind of chronic disorder or chronic disease, right? Well, what's happening is your cells now are having to compete for instance, ATP. We know that ATP made in the mitochondria of the cell, that's what's going to generate all this energy to keep you alive. That's what's keeping your cells working, right? Is that ATP. Well, what happens is, for instance, here, let me just get some space here. So we know that how is ATP made? So we start off with glucose, for instance. Here, let's change my pointer size. Let's see. All right, let's change that pin color. All right, so we start with glucose, and for instance, we're going to convert that glucose into pyruvate, and then we're going to take that pyruvate and we'll enter the Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle. Then we'll take that and go through the electron transport chain, and eventually we come out with all this ATP, right? What is ATP? We know that ATP is adenosine triphosphate. So it's adenosine and then three phosphates, right? And that's, you've heard that ATP manufactured in the mitochondria, that's the powerhouse of the cell that makes all the energy. Well, what happens is when you have a disorder, you have some kind of chronic disease, you're now not making as much ATP. So what's going to happen to your ATP levels if you're not making as much? Are your levels going to get higher and you're going to be more energized, or are your levels going to start to go down and you're going to be less energized? Well, that makes sense. You're going to obviously be less energized. Okay? Well, so that's exactly what happens. If you're not making the ATP, if your ATP levels are going to go down, everywhere you need ATP, you're not going to be able to have it. So, for instance, one of the